Welcome back to the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. As always, here I'm your host, Calvin Glen Alexander. And for the weekly Oklahoma State basketball, football, and all things OSU check-in, I'm joined as for always by Jake R. Carlson. Your middle name will let people figure out if they look up the iTunes description of the podcast. How about that? iTunes Spotify descriptions. You know what Jake's middle name is. My middle name is Glenn.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that by now. We want to talk about a couple different things here tonight. One, Oklahoma State's basketball game against Iowa State last night. Two, we also want to talk about the NFL playoffs and how it's going so far. Make a couple Super Bowl predictions, maybe. Fingers crossed. At least who's going to win this weekend. Yeah,
Yep.
I want to get into that a little bit here, as well as some other stuff. First thing just to say, Jake, is that as you know, and probably a bunch of other people who listen to the podcast know, is that my dad is one of the co-founders or founders of the Remember the 10 Run. Do just want to say, as always, on January 27th, every single year, it's been 21 years since the plane crash. Just want to send the condolences to all the family and friends of everyone with the run, but with really remembering the 10. And not necessarily to start the podcast on a super solemn note, but at the end of the day, it's something that I always think of every year on this day. So if you haven't yet, please sign up for the 10 Run. It's third weekend of April every year. So I think it's middle of April, third weekend of April this year as well. So I'll put a link or so in the description for the podcast in there in case you want to sign up for the run that basically has a scholarship at the end of the day for counseling students in Oklahoma State. And that's what the run benefits. So anyways, with all that being said here, let's talk about some Oklahoma State basketball. We played against Iowa State last night and ended up winning the rebounding margin or winning some stat, I'm sure, but we definitely lost the game. Lost by 3. Iowa State at home, 23rd team ranked in the country, but also 9th team in the Big 12. So what were your reactions from the game overall? Grant went to overtime. I can recap it more and more, but still.
I was impressed. I thought we looked really good generally, especially after looking as bad as we have offensively the past couple games. Now, I don't necessarily watch a lot of Iowa State basketball like I have in years past. I've actually enjoyed a lot of the teams that they had when they were really good, when they had Hoiberg with like Monte Morris, and we got to see some of those really fun teams come in and whoop up on us, and that's okay. But yeah, I haven't watched a lot of Iowa State this year, so I don't really know how they are offensively, defensively, all that kind of stuff. I know both of these teams aren't as bad defensively as the offense has made it seem. I know we're both much better defensively. I think we both just had an on night last night in terms of offense. But yeah, I was genuinely impressed. I didn't think our defense was that bad. There were a lot of people on Iowa State from what I read and what I was listening to on the broadcast that were doing things that they don't normally do. And yes, it's basketball. Yes, that can happen frequently, but it's frustrating. It's frustrating when I feel like I always has like generally tall or white guy that just shoots threes all over us. Matt Thomas comes to mind in years past. I think he plays for the Raptors now. I want to say he's in the NBA somewhere, and he's had a couple good games. But people like that guy killed us. Brockington killed us. Those were really the two main ones, other than our own guys just not. I mean, as great as we played offensively, Bryce Thompson went 1 for 8, and Rondell Walker went 1 for 7. Like they make one more basket and it's over. Like we win, and that didn't happen. So, not having Bryce Thompson sucks, or Bryce Williams. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. I would say this. If for Iowa State, you've got to go, how in the world do we not like blow them out? Period. From these couple stats I'm going to read here, right? Oklahoma State was 47% from the field, was 29% from three, and was 75% from the free throw line. Iowa State, on the other hand, was 53% from the field, 42.9. So I'm rounding up here, 43% from three, and 50% from the free throw line, right? The key differences for me is that Oklahoma State, we definitely were driving the ball into the hoop and trying to do as much as we could to go, let's just go get fouled, because we took 29 free throws. And normally I would go, man, the refs really killed us or whatever. They didn't, honestly. I mean, there's one play at the very, very end of the game that we can talk about of offensive basket interference from Cisse. That'll probably be one of the story type of book things that we talk about with Oklahoma State if we don't win this Saturday, and if we kind of have an up and down season or whatever it means to be.
Yep.
But we were 7 of 24 from three. They were 12 of 28. I mean, they made 5 more 3-pointers on only 4 more 3-point shots. So the other thing too is that they shot the ball, period, in the game 5 more times than we did. And granted, they took 4 of those 5 extra shots they had were threes, but they made 5 more threes than we did. And that pretty much is the game notes, to be honest. There were 28 lead changes. Neither team led by more than 4 points the whole game. And Oklahoma State only led by 3. Iowa State was the one who actually led by 4 at one point before they ended up winning by 3. It's just an insane game.
And there were 19 lead changes at halftime.
Yeah.
Something it was something insane like that. But yeah, I mean, Iowa State, whether they are or not, again, I haven't watched a ton of them this year outside of what I watched last night. They are a jump shooting team. A lot of jump shots because they didn't have big men that could basically hang with our big men. Now, the only difference is they were making those jump shots. And we are not a jump shooting team, as we know. Avery Anderson was last night. But outside of that, it's just that was one of those games where they just made a couple more shots than we did. That's what it really boiled down to for me. I thought we should have won the game, like you said. I genuinely do. I thought we played better than them. If you just from a whole, but just some of the shots that they hit were insane. I mean, they were ridiculous. Brockington was hitting step back, like mid range, like the worst shots in basketball. He was taking them and making them.
And he hit one to basically win the. I mean, I don't want to say win the game, but he hit one to put him up 3, which puts us in desperation mode when we have the ball next.
The one he hit to go to overtime was dumb. Like and Likely was all over him. Like there was nothing that Likely could have done. That shot was going in.
Yeah, do we want to talk about the turnover margin a little bit too? Because we had 16 turnovers to their 15, really about the same. The other big thing I noticed here, just overall, we only had 2 players scoring double figures. Avery scored 34 points at the end of the day. Insane amount of points. And he was getting the free throw line. I mean, 11 of those points are from the free throw line, from the charity stripe. But Iowa State, on the other hand, they were able to rotate guys in and out. I think this is one of the things that you and I look forward to see how the roster changes next year.
Yeah.
Right. I don't necessarily want to already get into next season. Like it's January basketball. We haven't even hit, end of Big 12 play in March. We still got a whole month left after this one. But with all that being said, the diversity of scoring, we don't have like a true guy who just goes out and scores every single game. It's Bryce Thompson against Texas, which tried so hard, almost came back. Avery last night against Iowa State. And then we had Bryce against Baylor go off too. So we've got a chance as a team to really have a lot of great guys who score, but it's somehow we can't get it all synced up where we have Avery score 20, Bryce score 20, etc. And I know that's kind of not really the flow of an offense, but
Right.
can you imagine if Likely scored 13 every night on 6 to 9 shooting?
I
That would open up everything for us. If I could score 13 points, 6 to 9, one free throw, we would be.
yeah.
It would should
And
expand everything a lot more.
I think the last night Likely is what we expect, right? That's the Likely that we are anticipating. That's how he should play, very aggressively. And I'm not expecting him to score 13, but he's a guy that's capable to have 10 and 5 10 5 and 5 probably very easily every single night.
Well, he has all defensive rebounds last night, 6 of
Yeah.
them. So last night, for example, he's plays 40 minutes, hits one free throw, but is 13, 6, and 8. 13 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals. Yeah, I mean, granted, also 3 turnovers, but he's putting in a lot of work. Like it's kind of like Bryce Thompson, where I don't know what happened last night. He killed against Baylor. Baylor's the number 1 team in the country. We're
Mhm.
at their place, and Bryce Thompson goes, I'm fired up. I'm heating up whatever. I'm killing it. And for whatever reason last night, Thompson was 0 of 5 from 3, 1 of 8 shooting the ball. And he helps out his numbers a little bit. Granted, not a ton, but a little bit by going 5 of 6 from the charity stripe, right? But
Mhm.
Bryce Thompson, a 5-star recruit against what was going into the night a 9th-ranked Iowa State team in the Big 12, so, which you can devalue a team, or you can say they're 23rd in the country. I'm going
Yeah.
to say this, as you know, as almost everyone who listens knows, the Big 12 is the best conference in basketball. It's a gauntlet 1 through 10. There's no easy game night in, night out. You said that last
Yeah.
podcast. We both have been saying it for years now. So saying, oh, a guy has an off night against Iowa State, they're not even. That's tough, no matter what. But man, if Thompson's able to get it going a little bit, and we can just get guys where Thompson has 15 when Avery goes off for 30, like we win games. That's it. We win games. We just don't have that offensive identity, and having only 2 guys scoring double digits hurts us a lot. But the other key thing I'd say is that we don't have like a knockdown 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're looking at guys. There's a guy who's a recruit last night who I'll get to later on here, who was watching Oklahoma State's game. Of course, sneaker night was a lot of fun. We're doing a lot of great things, I think, promotion wise with recruiting and all the athletes coming in the building for Oklahoma State athletics right now too.
Mhm.
But when I look over at this Iowa State team, it's the Condit kid, as you said, played 28 minutes, but he was 4 of 4 from the field. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
Didn't take one 3-pointer. But he's a tall kid, 28 minutes, 2 or 3 from the charity stripe, 10 points. But man, he puts up 4 assists, grabs 8 rebounds. 3 of them are offensive rebounds too. I can read off like every stat sheet, but the other key thing is just they were able to spread around the points. They have 1, 2, 3, 4 guys in double digits, 2 of which were not starters. And man, just if we get that guy who would reliably score 15 points a night, and I think that is Bryce Williams, to be honest.
Yeah, in what we saw last night is what Avery Anderson should do every night. Honestly. Not scoring 34 points, but attacking. He's not a jump shooter. We know this. Like he can be. He was last night. That's why the game was so close. Um but he's not. He's not he's not really a jump shooter, and that's okay. But he is a driver. He is a free throw getter. And that's what he needs to do, and he just I don't know what it is this year, but he just hasn't really done it.
He's got to be working on it because at this point, Avery was one of those guys where I said, "Wow, he maybe goes to the draft last year." He went to the NBA draft scouts, right,
Mhm.
to get graded. Ends up coming back, of course, through the way you can. And I was going, "This is the season where Avery Anderson goes off." preseason podcast about Big 12 basketball. Okay, Avery goes off. Bryce Thompson also goes off. Man, we got a good team. I mean, this really came in with high hopes for this team. Cisse's a 5-star recruit too, who transferred from Memphis, who's just incredibly great guy defensively. I thought he played a great game last night.
He
to
did.
be honest.
He
If
did.
he could have waited for half a millisecond longer or something, maybe it's not offensive basket interference where they count the bucket. But I'll end out with this before we get to that point. We have a tough schedule ahead of us. Big 12 is the toughest team, toughest conference. Overall, Iowa State came in as the 9th-ranked team in the Big 12 last night, but they are 23rd in the country coming into that game too.
Yep.
So it's not like they lost all 5 conference games before they played against us last night either. With all this being said here, is Iowa State a tournament team?
I would say yeah.
So I don't feel that bad then. To be honest, if we're only losing to tournament teams the rest of the way, that's 8 out of 10 teams in the Big 12 because we can't make it. And I doubt the Big 12 gets more than 8, gets a 19, to be honest.
I think they get 8.
I do too. Joe Lenardi thinks they get 8. We're not being that biased, really. We're seeing other worldly guys out there who have other opinions besides you and I, excuse me, come down and go, yeah, you know what? I think the Big 12 gets 8. KU, Baylor, easily. And, we can tack Texas. We can keep going here with the teams. So at the end of the day, there's probably going to be only one other team besides us who doesn't make the NCAA tournament. And I have to go, you know what? This team we are a tournament team, but we're not playing like it, and we can't make the tournament. So I'm not going to be that mad or that upset when we don't when we lose to teams that are going to make the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, the Big 12 is it's loaded. And like you said, we have a pretty not very fun schedule coming up. Obviously, we play Florida this weekend. The one frustrating part, I feel like Bryce Williams will probably play this weekend. I just feel like this is one of those games that he will want to play. Isn't he from Florida? Yeah. So I feel like this is probably one of the games he will want to play. He's playing against his old coach, all that stuff. But it's frustrating when you lose 2 games by a combined 8 points to 2 ranked teams, and your best scorer didn't play in either, or your highest scorer didn't play in either of them. That's, and I know we can sit here and, play the injury bug game with everybody, but Bryce Williams for Oklahoma State is more than a scorer, and he has been for the last 2 years. So missing him is honestly like missing our best player.
We're talking about a 6'2" guard who led the team in blocks last year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
An average blocks per game.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of other Big 12 teams. Not a lot of other teams in the country who have a guard leading their team in blocks, let alone be the guy who's maybe the shortest guy on the court most of the time. Now, Williams' vertical is probably 40 plus, or whatever it is too, because he's able to get to a lot more balls than you would think. Swat him out of the way. And CC will probably beat him in the numbers this year, with that being said. But, man, it's just Kalen Boone playing 17 minutes and having 3 points. Okay. All right. Tariq Smith playing 7 minutes and having 2 points. Okay. All right. Like, whatever. Caleb Boone, 6 minutes, 6 points. So, what's the deal?
Yeah.
I mean, he's just 2 of 2 from the field, 2 of 2 from the free throw line. I feel like he was the guy who, you average a point a minute. I'm going to take another couple looks to see what happened in the game, to be honest. Right? It's just bizarre. I just feel like the points, the minutes in retrospect can always be reallocated. That's what we do when we don't win games. We look back through and we go, I'm going to nitpick this, and this, and see what could be better. I'm fully aware of that. But I'm also fully aware that Avery scoring 34 is not going to happen again this season. That's his career high.
Yeah.
If he scores 34 in another game this season and we lose, it really, I will have a lot more questions, to be honest.
Well, and I think, we're coming off of that West Virginia game um, that he ended his career on last year. And so we're coming in and expecting a different kind of Avery Anderson. And I just, someone told us that he thinks it's a Cade thing. We've been told that before um, by people with a little bit more, a little closer to the program than us. That a lot of people think it's a Cade thing, and so on and so forth. And yeah, like I don't necessarily disagree. I guess our point is we just expected Avery to take a step up, and I don't know if he has some. I don't want to make excuses for the guy, but I don't know if he's injured. I don't know if the offense doesn't fit for him. All of those can be true. But I think the Avery Anderson we saw last night is the Avery Anderson that not 34 points, but the aggressiveness is the Avery Anderson we expect on a nightly basis. Like I'm okay if that dude drives and takes 12 free throws because we see how good he is at getting fouled, and he could miss all 12 of those shots. But if he gets to take 2 free throws every time, I'm okay with that. But I think we want to see the aggressiveness because you and I both expected that he would be the highest scorer on the team.
Yeah, I do think this is the, like you said, like we've heard from other sources too, that this is a Cade deal where at the end of the game, we kind of like look around and one guy takes over. It'd just be nice if we got to that point of, okay, who's going to take over? And we were already killing it. Right? That's what everyone would wish. Everyone wishes that, we were winning in the last 5 minutes of the game. You didn't have to come back. You weren't tied with them. Likely had a quote after the game where he said, yeah, the late changes are fun for the fans, but it's not fun for us. Well, no crap. No, it's not fun for you guys. No, it is fun for us to watch, but it's not a lot of fun for us to watch when we lose.
Right.
And it's also not a lot of fun when you're thinking at the end of the game, oh my gosh, they really called that offensive basket interference, which I think goes into your deal of what is goaltending at this point? Because
I think we need to have a new segment of like what ref ruling was Jake pissed off about this week, and I'm just gonna find one. I went on this tangent a little bit before the podcast when Kyle and I were talking. I don't understand, and you agreed. I don't understand offensive goaltending. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I think that the reason that rules are put in place is so nobody gets a competitive advantage, right? One, injuries, which is a big one, and so the game's played fair, right? Like that's pretty much it. Prevent injury and fair play. So, I mean, you can go down a list of rules where they're in place so nobody gets a competitive advantage. Pass interference, holding, goaltending. I mean, you can keep going. All of these rules have the same effect. I couldn't come up with one for offensive goaltending, whatever the hell they want to call it. I couldn't come up with it. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because every other league outside of the US plays without offensive goaltending. And I know we're the best basketball league, blah, blah, blah. Every other league plays without it. FIBA rules play without the stupid cylinder rule. And I would love for somebody to explain to me what the cylinder rule is because I watch a lot of basketball and every time I see it come up, it still doesn't make any sense to me. So that's kind of my rant. Did it affect the game? Yes, significantly. It significantly affected the outcome of the game. That because the game went to overtime. It did. And the game was in overtime. And, if we're down by 10 in overtime, it doesn't affect the game. But when you're talking about the basket that would put us up, yeah, it affects the game with what, less than 20 seconds left, right? We go up with less than 20 seconds left. and they call it off for offensive basket interference. I mean, just saying it out loud, offensive basket interference. So it's like, are you getting a competitive advantage? No. Are you hurting somebody? No. So what is the point of the rule?
To play devil's advocate a little bit, it has to be because it gives an unfair advantage to the team who's trying to go rebound it. I mean, for example, if CJ is playing against Iowa State or
Hmm.
Texas, it gives us a huge advantage. Anytime the ball is put up, hits the backboard, comes off, whatever, instead of hitting off the backboard and then seeing if it's going to hit off the rim, right? Or seeing then if it's going to go over the cylinder or not, we can just dunk it if we're on offense. If we're on defense, you have to wait. Period. So that's the easy and example is that it just gives a teams that who have a size advantage just so much bigger of an advantage than they would normally have. Now, with all that being said, the U.S. is the only, the U.S. has most of, if not all, of the professional basketball that you and I would want to watch on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
So they're doing something right with it. I would say it's just a tough spot for us to be in again,
Hmm.
because I'm not going to go into like well, if it goes this way or whatever. You know what? At the end of the season, if we could have been 11-9, 11-8 after last night instead of being 10-9, I feel a lot better. But who knows? Maybe CJ dunks that, they call it good, and then Iowa State comes down, hits the 3-pointer, and they still win.
Yeah.
Just the Avery Anderson push-off on replay, it's real easy to see that, yeah, he extends his arm out there. But live was not easy to tell whatsoever. I don't know how the
And
refs made that call on the push-off, to be honest.
and again, as I've said before, there is a time and place to call certain calls, especially if you're not consistent across the whole game, which no ref is. But there
Mhm.
were multiple times. There was even an and one that Hunter, I think last name Hunter, um, he got an and one because he powers. What did they call it? The power hop, right? Where you go 1-2 jump. But his jump was like this. So he shouldered Avery Anderson and like trucked him. And as Avery Anderson's falling down, he tries to swipe for the ball, hits his arm. That's an obvious foul, but the contact wasn't engaged by the defender. And it's like, okay, so we could do this all day, right? Like we could do back and forth, we could do the back and forth. But that was one of the things when the game is literally almost tied the entire game. You call two critical calls. One when the game is tied, and one when OSU is down by one to take away a bucket in benefit of the other team. Like, I'm sorry, out of bounds calls aren't subjective. They're not. Like y'all stepped out of bounds like 3 times. I'm sorry you couldn't get the ball inbounded and over half court. That's not my problem. But offensive goaltending and a little iffy charge when they called it are not good. Now, all that being said, do I think we deserve to lose? No. Do I think Iowa State deserved to lose? Also no. I think both teams deserve to win that game. It was just a shame that it came down to what it came down to.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we of course want Oklahoma State to win, but we also of course want to see some great basketball overall. It sucks one of the two teams had to lose, and it sucks it was us.
Yeah.
You know?
And also, ESPN, figure it out. Okay? Put college basketball games on ESPN on Wednesdays. Nobody wants to watch Heat Knicks. Nobody. It was a 30-point game in the third quarter. All right? Figure it out. There's good college basketball on almost every single night.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Just because Heat Knicks, you can have so many of the NBA players. The NBA season is either too long, or there's not strict enough rules on guys playing in a certain amount of games. To be honest,
Yeah.
because there's quite often times that I'm saying it's horrible grammatically today, but it happens way too often that I go, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to watch the Suns versus, for example, last night. Oh, dude, Suns versus Jazz. Great game, right?
Yeah,
Except
I
for not,
actually watched that one.
except for, okay, well, still, the refs screwed up at the end where they teed up. Oh gosh, was
I
it
was I was asleep by then.
DeAndre Ayton or JaVale McGee? I forget who, but somebody
Booker
got teed up at the end.
Booker Booker got a terrible technical foul early in the game as well.
Yeah. Well, Booker ends up shooting 2 techs at the end to like ice it, basically.
Hmm.
I think it's on Whiteside, excuse me. Tall center dude, but clearly on the Jazz at this point. Son Whiteside got a
Fitting.
horrible tech at the end of the game for mouthing off. It's like, okay, you know what? Like, if the ref doesn't hear that, then whatever. So I'd always say, put on some Big 12 basketball. It'll always be a close game. Put on Big 12 Wednesday nights. Let's do it. Why not? Or
Yeah.
UCLA, Arizona. I don't know if that was last night. I don't think it was, but there's a bunch of great college basketball. Everyone would love to watch college basketball because all these guys are trying to make it to the NBA.
Yeah.
Or they're trying to make it to the next step. So they're playing every single night as hard as they can.
And
The NBA guys, like, we got to figure out a midseason tournament. And the NBA is a whole other topic for you and I to talk about another day because there's just Lakers 76ers is tonight. And
I don't care.
I don't know who's playing. I don't know.
I know
I
LeBron's not, because apparently that's breaking news.
Well,
It's like I saw breaking news flash across my screen. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? They're like, LeBron's not playing, his knee sore, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't care.
Well, Lakers Nets. Oh gosh, you know what? That'd be a fun game, right? Well, except for the fact that it was just James Harden playing against the Lakers. And like Kevin Durant's injured for a certain amount of weeks, so it's not. His is not a health and safety protocol rest thing. Kyrie Irving's got a whole different other debacle we could talk about another day for 5 hours.
Or not.
That he can't play, or not. Well, I'm trying to push this off for forever, to be honest. So we don't talk about it.
Yeah,
because
there you
Kyrie
go.
can't play home games. But then again, that hurts the NBA trying to set up. Oh, let's have Saturday night on NBA TV. And it's just
let me ask you this: is because I want to read this off really quickly because this got announced as we were doing the podcast, and then get to some of the NFL games because I've actually been watching that. Is it worth watching the NBA this year just from an entertainment aspect? The games that they actually put on TV, the games that are actually on TV.
But you have to be watching a selection of 2 to 3 teams, and that's it. The rest of the teams they put on TV don't watch.
That's
but like but for you and I, Suns for sure. Sign me up every single time. Warriors.
Yeah, Suns are great.
Warriors
are great.
Steph Curry is putting up some tour dates, some 4-21, some 1-20, whatever it is, right? I'm trying to be funny here.
Yeah.
But because everyone's made that joke at the end of the day because he's had a horrible shooting slump in January since he broke the 3-point record. Nonetheless, it's great if you want to watch Warriors. It's great if you want to watch Suns. Jazz probably fun. Then, of course, your team. That's the third team. Your team. So, for you.
And my team's not
Wizards,
fun to watch.
Not a lot of fun to watch. But
never on television.
But Thunder, fun to watch. Not really on TV. I just got one last thing to say here on the NBA topic before we move on. Hey, Detroit Pistons, I want to buy a Kate Cunningham jersey. Just get it shipped directly to me. Not like a personalized jersey. I want to buy a Kate Cunningham City jersey.
Yeah.
Have it on the website.
They don't have it on. It's not on the website?
I cannot buy. So I know it's like a niche thing, right? I know it's a niche thing. But it's the City jersey. So they only make one of those. They change the City jersey every year. But Cade's rookie year City jersey, I used to work in Detroit. And Cade used to go to Oklahoma State. Clear connection there. So would love to, if at all possible, buy Cade Cunningham City jersey. I currently have to personalize a city jersey to get Cade's name in there, and it's just the extra $30, but also just the convenience factor is just not there. So
Yeah.
I'll message somebody. I'll figure it out. But nonetheless,
La-
it's just frustrating.
Last NBA, have you seen the NBA starters yet for the All-Star game?
I've seen enough of it. Andrew Wiggins is one of them.
Yeah. So we've got Steph Curry. Okay. John Morant. Okay. LeBron James. Probably not. Jokic. Yeah, probably. And Andrew Wiggins.
Wiggins is the one guy who should not be on there.
I mean, should LeBron be an all-star starter this year? If he didn't have the fan vote, is he an all-star starter?
He's averaging 29 points a game.
Well, it helps when you don't play every night.
But he should be. To be honest,
Okay.
they're not a lottery team. LeBron's been good enough, and LeBron's like the face of the league still to this day.
The other ones we have DeMar DeRozan, Trae Young. I guess losing 12 straight at home doesn't matter. Kevin Durant, also not playing doesn't matter. Joel Embiid and Giannis. Embiid and Giannis are like shoo-ins, and from my little NBA knowledge this year. But Embiid's on my fantasy team, so that helps. But it's DeMar and Trae Young being all-star starters is interesting, to say the least.
DeMar definitely deserves it, though, to be honest.
Okay.
He's just been putting up stats. Now he was out for a little bit, came back, whatever. He missed Monday night against Oklahoma City, and the Thunder almost pulled off the win there. Regardless, DeMar deserves it. Trae Young does not. It just, I don't know. Is what it is.
That's our NBA segment for the day. That's pretty much
pretty much between you and me. Another podcast, I'll cover a lot more NBA. Don't get me wrong.
There you go.
And it looks like somebody did hear me that now I can buy a K Cunningham replica jersey.
Oh, nice.
On Fanatics. So shout out to Fanatics. Way to have that.
Oh.
Yeah. It's actually not as expensive as I thought it would be, to be honest. So regardless here. Let's talk some NFL though. So
yeah.
All right, let's just lead it off. Kansas City versus Buffalo.
Best game you've ever seen? Pro football?
I want to say yes. I don't know why I wouldn't say yes.
I think the only other one in my recent memory that I could compare it to, 28-3 was legendary, but I wouldn't say it was necessarily like a super fun game to watch like this one was. New Orleans and Minnesota. The Stephon Diggs touchdown with like no seconds left on the clock. That one was pretty cool. But I would say like of the pro football that we've had as of late, this one is, I mean, it was incredible. I can't really, there's no words to describe how great this game was. I'm just sorry if you didn't watch it. I'm sorry you missed it. Like now the funny part is, it's funny once everybody starts playing Big 12 football that people are like, wow, this is really fun. Instead of just crapping on the defenses the whole game.
From my aspect of it, it's a lot of fun to watch NFL games like that. Now, the Big 12, though, that's not Oklahoma State offense from this past year, but it's a lot of fun to watch high-scoring football games. I don't know why we're not saying this every single time. It's a lot of fun to watch when there's just a bunch of risky big plays at the end, and we're not like trying to have a whole clock run out management deal. The other part of it that's a lot of fun, for me at least, is that we have like topics just to go on about the NFL. We just talk for the NBA for 5 minutes or whatever about how it's just not going the way you'd want it to, et cetera, et cetera. Instead, NFL, it's going exactly how they'd want to. Granted, the first weekend of games was bad. The second weekend of games, unparalleled, amazing.
I mean,
right? Every
But
single game ended as time expired on regulation on a field goal try. Every single game.
Did we have high expectations for the first round of games? Because I felt like there were a couple teams in the playoffs that might not have had not necessarily the highest expectations for, but they had a little fraud in them. And I actually heard this. I think it was on Ryan Rosilla's podcast. Troy Aikman was on there, so it was pretty interesting. I feel like he doesn't really get in those types of settings, but they brought up Dallas, obviously. And the one thing I'll say about Dallas, because of course we have to bring them up because we're talking about the NFL, is I think having and same. I mean, I guess you could say the same for Philly this year. But a lot of their wins came from the division just being so sorry. Like the division is just so bad, it almost doesn't help Dallas out at all because it's like then they go play a good team and they're like, what is this?
You know what really doesn't help out at all? It's the Packers.
Yeah.
The Vikings were the only team that was seemingly somewhat good, but the Packers, weirdly enough, of any NFC team, had no other team make it to the playoffs. I mean, you're talking they get 2 games against the Lions, 2 games against the Bears, 2 games against the Vikings every year.
Mhm.
If I'm a Packers fan, sign me up. Vikings
Yeah.
fire their head coach after the end of the season, even though the Vikings were the best out of the 4 teams there. Or, excuse me, the best of those 3 teams that didn't make the playoffs. And if you're Dallas, at least Philly made the playoffs, to be honest.
Yeah.
I didn't have high hopes at all for Philly. I thought that game would go how it did.
Yeah.
I didn't have high hopes for the Raiders. I thought that game would go, honestly, worse than it did. It was much closer than I thought it'd be Bengals-Raiders.
The Raiders are interesting to me. They're like a whole conundrum.
It's just a
Like
bizarre deal.
And I'm sorry, it's hard not to like Derek Carr. Like just as a person. You don't have to necessarily think he's the greatest quarterback in the world, but just him and how he operates, the things he says, he backs it up basically, and I respect that a lot.
I can get with that. I can agree with that. I, of course, wish, your team or my team is more competitive going to the playoffs this year. But Dallas against 49ers, that was bizarre. For one other reason, a lot of Niners fans.
Yeah.
And I know we talked about that game, but, man, there's a lot of red in the stadium.
Can we just say that I picked every single game correctly on the phone with you this weekend?
You did. So not, you're qualifying it because, of course, as anyone knows, we didn't make picks. So that's why I want us to make picks here today.
Yeah.
So first pick is, will 50% of the stadium when Niners play be red or blue? What's the percentage guess that'll be
where
red?
Is it?
Oh, it's in SoFi Stadium. It's in LA.
It's in SoFi.
They're restricting ticket sales.
Oh, they are.
Niners fans. Yeah, have you not seen this? Yeah.
No, I haven't. I genuinely think there's probably going to be more red.
More red than Rams, yellow or blue.
Yeah. Unless people from St. Louis are just like feeling themselves,
That's the funny deal, though, is that anyone our age knows that it's the St. Louis Rams, not the Los Angeles Rams, to be honest.
Who do you have winning that game?
I have the Rams barely because there's so many weird stats that go for the Niners. Yeah. Almost as though when we were watching the Iowa State-Oklahoma State game, or it was like Iowa State, how many times did they pop up with that stat of like 24 road conference losses in a row? I was like, can you not show that every 5 seconds? That makes me feel like we're definitely like, well, it makes me feel like we're cursed that we're going to be the team because they keep showing that, right?
Yeah.
And they may have been showing that against, when Iowa State played their last road conference game when they saying it was 23. But man, that definitely was a predetermined jinx type of deal. I was like, okay, this is not great.
I
Sean
I
McVay,
don't know.
0-6 against Kyle Shanahan in his career.
That's bizarre. I'm interested to see how this game's gonna go. I really am. I don't think it's gonna be very good at all.
Well, let's make the pick for the game, and then we'll talk
Okay.
about Bills Chiefs a little bit in the overtime deal,
Yep.
and then make a pick for, of course, Chiefs Bengals at that point.
Chiefs Bengals.
So, who you got, Niners or Rams? Grant, we're making these picks on Thursday. Games on Sunday. Do you want the line?
Yeah.
All right, let me get it for you here real quick here. Niners, Rams. To me, I think I'll say it this way. I'm picking the Rams. The Rams are the better team on paper. They're the better team in the stat sheet. They're the better team in the record.
Mhm.
The only thing they're not better in is they didn't beat the Rams this season. Excuse me, they didn't beat
Yeah.
the Niners this season. That's what I get very, very worried about it,
Yeah.
to be honest. So it's tough.
It's I don't know. I think I might pick the Niners that game. And I feel like doesn't Stafford have like an absolutely awful pick six rating where he like has like an insane amount of pick sixes?
Yeah, but he didn't have one against the Bucks. I'm knocking on the table underneath me here.
Yeah. It I'm approaching because I said when we talked on the phone, and I know this is kind of a cop out, so that's why I said I picked the Niners, but I feel like I'm approaching this with the same way as Niners Packers. It wouldn't surprise me. Like I think the Niners will win, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Packers did. So I know that's kind of a cop out, but I will pick the Niners. Just head to head. I don't know. I think it's a weird game. And from what I've heard, beating a team 3 times in 1 year is not as wonky as it is in like basketball or college football.
Well, so the Niners did it against the Seahawks in 04.
Yep.
They
It's
won.
been done
They
like
won all. They
22
won.
times,
Yeah,
right? Like
it's kind of
22
crazy the
times or
amount of
something.
times it's happened, to be
Yeah.
honest. But here's
Yeah.
the spread. Yes, here's the spread.
Hmm.
LA is favored by 3.5. Minus 3.5. It's the Rams. The over/under is 46. The money line is Los Angeles minus 175. San Francisco plus 150. The Rams are 2-6 against the spread in their last 8 games, and the Niners are 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 games as road underdogs.
And what time is that? Are both games Sunday?
Both games are Sunday. I believe this is the first of the two, although it's got to be the later of the 2 games, to be honest. Like mapping wise, how are the
Yeah,
Central
that's
Time
true.
Zone? Let me
Yeah,
double check though.
I agree with that. But I've got Niners semi reluctantly, but I think I just feel like they're going to pull it out somehow. Um, and like I said, you can't really use the 3 times in 1 year rule because it doesn't really apply. And the other factor is the only time you're playing someone 3 times in 1 year is if you play them in the playoffs. So and it's happened 22 times. That's a lot. That is a lot of times that this has happened. So yeah, that's my pick. Next game,
Bengals Chiefs.
yeah. Um, I hope it's a shootout. I do. I hope it's a shootout. Um, I want the Bengals to win. Just I would just like to see Burrow. Um, but I would not like to see Burrow go up against either Joey Bosa or Aaron Donald because I think they would literally kill him because his line sucks. So but I am going to pick the Chiefs. I think it'll be Chiefs Niners. A lot of red going on there, playing in SoFi Stadium, ironically.
Yeah, that actually would be very ironic. Chiefs Niners. I'm gonna
Knocking both
say
teams out.
I'm gonna yeah. I'm gonna say it's gonna be the Chiefs. I want the Bengals to win. Just I feel like it's just like you do. Weirdly enough, we saw this exact same matchup, except for it was in Cincinnati
Yeah.
this month, January 2nd. So, man, both these teams were destined to basically play each other. Cincinnati beat Kansas City 34-31, January 2nd, 2022. What are we doing? So, crazy deal. Of course, Joe Burrow gets sacked 9 times against the Titans past weekend, and still they end up winning. Granted, on a walk-off field goal, but walk-off field goal, walk-off field goal. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to watch this. Of the two games, I'm more excited to watch this one because I think this game could lead itself to much more of a Bills Chiefs-esque type matchup. Whereas I think the
Yeah.
Rams Niners is either the Rams blow them out or the Niners have to make it a close game the entire time and the Niners pull it out the end.
Yeah.
Like there was no way that the Packers were going to lose a shootout against the Niners, but there's definitely a
No.
way where the Packers were going to lose a weird special teams deal against the Niners for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers also. I mean, you're going to be nice from the playoffs, my guy. You're going to be nice from the championship round. So I'm sorry about you. I'll pick this one just for clear record. Very at the end. You have red. You have Chiefs, Niners.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
have red, blue/yellow, whatever they're called, the Rams. You associate with more. So I have Chiefs, Rams.
Gotcha.
Super Bowl. We'll make Super Bowl picks here later on. It'll be a lot of fun. Last thing I'd say is that how would you fix the NFL overtime rules? I've got a couple ideas myself, but I want to hear what your opinion is too. Because granted, Josh Allen had a great quote after the game. He said, "I can't be mad because if we got on the ball first, we would have won too."
Yeah.
That's a great mentality. Great way to say it. Also,
Absolutely.
shout out to the Chiefs fans for having like a ceremonious type of deal where they donate money to the opposing players, like charity.
Yeah.
They donate $150,000 to Josh Allen's like sponsored charity. Shout out to the Chiefs fans for doing that because that was one hell of a great game at the end.
Yeah, it was. I think the way that I would fix NFL overtime is just make it similar to college. And I don't know if it's something as simple as I think having the clock in overtime is dumb. I think that's kind of dated. I personally like college football overtime. I don't see many issues with it. I've heard some funny ones thrown around where you play like 3 overtimes, and then if you're still tied after that, then you have like a kickoff for field goals. I think that would be really fun because you're not going to make it there that much. It's just not like 3 overtimes. I mean, we saw the Illinois Penn State game this year that went to like 9, but that's not going to happen frequently. It's not. Those teams both also just have horrendous offenses. So yeah, I'm not opposed to the college football overtime rule. If you want to put a clock on it, sure, that wouldn't be my first bet. But I understand NFL players kind of needing to have maybe to just not play as much, getting tired and so on and so forth. So I think they just need to have the other team get a chance at the ball. I think it coming down to, and people will be like, well, why don't you just stop them? Shut up. Your team couldn't stop Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. My team couldn't stop Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. So it doesn't matter. But I think that game is the prime reason as to why, not just for the spectator, but for the fairness aspect. Like you're talking about it coming down to the flip of a coin. And I know it's hard to argue now because they know the rules. The rules haven't changed. They know what the rules are. So that's it. But the rules need to change. And I think it's okay to say that.
So here's what I'd say. For any regular season game, it can end in a tie. Don't care. Steelers versus Lions ended in a tie this season. Did not need overtime to tell me that. Right? Did not need an extra 10 minutes to figure out Steelers versus Lions, where it's unfortunately Roethlisberger's backup, I believe, and Rudolph playing against, Jared Goff. Did not need overtime there. So any regular season game, overtime's not needed. If it ends in a tie, we'll figure out the tiebreakers later on, where the Steelers could weirdly make it in if both the Chargers and Raiders games end in not a tie, but, have those fun scenarios, right? More ties in the regular season, it won't make everyone happy, but for everyone in the NFL who's a player, whose ruling is let's not do the college football deal because then that only extends the game for forever, I'm fine with regular season. No overtime ever need to be necessary. Then in the NFL playoffs, where you cannot have that deal and you have to decide a winner, no matter what, you play 10 minutes, both teams get the ball. That's it. You play 10 minutes. As long as both teams touch the ball within the 10 minutes, you're good. If there is some freak thing where the Chiefs get the ball and are able to go 11 yards every single time where the other team never gets the ball, then you know what? I'll pay someone $50. Sorry. It's just never happening. It's just never happening. I mean, make it 500. It's just, that's not happening. 10 minutes. It's not happening. Both teams were so tired. Both of those defenses have to be gassed.
They were.
I mean, when we're talking about at the end of the game, how did no one bump Kelsey? Somebody should have. Somebody should have played press cover, and not let him get that wide open in the middle of the field, right? It's a great story between Mahomes telling him, no, do it, Kelsey, do it, whatever, right? Sees the deal, runs it, whatever, and somehow the Chiefs are the first team ever to get the ball back with 13 seconds left and ended up winning the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we love watching more football. No one's rooting for less football. So I'm just saying, just play one more 10-minute period. Both teams are going to get the ball. Just play the 10 minutes. What are we doing? You played 60. What's 10 minutes more? Because both teams were gassed. And if it ends up being a shootout where, okay, both teams are tied at the end of the 10-minute period as well, too, then you know what? Start it over. I mean, just keep it going.
Yeah.
Do a no coin toss, do whatever, and guys got to keep going, but move on with it. Maybe make it a 5-minute overtime where it's just 5 minutes, each team has one timeout, whatever ends up being. But no matter what, each team should get a chance to have the football in their offensive possession.
So,
and I'm fully aware, you know what? You can have normal overtime rules right now, except for you add one more sentence. No matter what the opposing team, no matter what, the team who doesn't win the coin toss gets the ball. So if the Chiefs drive down, score a touchdown, walk off, Kelsey throws the ball in the air, this seems a lot more like a game that I watched in SoFi Stadium earlier this year against the Chargers. You know what? If the Chargers get the ball back and don't score, game. That's it. Game. Decided. We don't need to play the rest of the 10-minute mark, from whatever is on.
This is my theory. And it might be a little flawed in some ways, but if the fatigue and the tiredness area is a problem, what's wrong with doing a 2-minute drill? Both offenses get the ball for 2 minutes and try and score. And you get one timeout.
See, to be honest, I don't think there's any problem at all. And I have no problem at all with just merging the college rule into the NFL rule. Yeah. But every single guy on SportsCenter and Fox Sports and wherever else says, okay, well, if you do that, then the game never ends. It's just an offensive super, sweepstakes, whatever. So you know what? What if you do it and both teams start on the 40 instead of the 25?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, they got 40 yards to go instead of 25 yards. And touchdown wins, touchdown doesn't win it. The other team gets the ball back no matter what. And you just keep playing that way.
Right.
There are so many different possibilities of ways to fix this. Yeah. But every single way is better than what it is now.
I agree.
And you know what? You talked about it earlier, and you mentioned as well too. It used to be you could just go down and kick a field goal and win. That'd be it. But
Which was even dumber.
This is why I love like living life, I guess, longer, is that as you get older, you learn more and you learn how you can do things better. It's not like we have to stick with what this is. Everyone knows that there is a better way of doing it, that the offense in the NFL is really, truly driving the sport. That seeing Aaron Donald sack a guy 20 times is not really getting people off the couch. You and I are not talking about TJ Watt tying the sack leading, all-time sack leader in the NFL this year, even though he missed a couple of games. Granted, there was one extra game this season, but even though he missed a game or two, right? We're not talking about that defensively. We're instead talking about how that we wish that Josh Allen, freakazoid human athlete, who runs like he's Jerome Bettis, but can throw like he's, I'd say Romo. He's not Patrick Mahomes accurate, but he's Romo accurate, right? Is a guy we wanted to see get the ball one more time. So we would much rather that happen than watch, unfortunately, the Bills DBs not keep up, right? Because would you have rather watched at the end of the day? And I know what the answer is. I know the answer is no. But you would much rather watch the game that we did when I'm traveling through the sky to come out to Oklahoma for a family trip here, and there are people audibly gasping on a plane. Like, that was the coolest thing ever. In the airport, people wearing Chiefs masks, Chiefs jerseys, people wearing a Bills hat, someone wearing a 49ers mask, et cetera, all type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And going, oh,
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, it's like I'm at like the best movie theater ever because I get to see everyone else's reactions all around me. A couple people were 2 seconds ahead of me because they didn't have YouTube TV and they're watching it live through cable or whatever it was too. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So
It was.
Football is fun. We're not talking about head trauma. It's 2022. We're not. The only guy that makes us think about it, really, to me, every single day is Junior Seau and Antonio Brown. Now, that's 2 guys, but it's really Antonio Brown because that guy, don't know. Crazy dude. But no one's going to tell me different from the Devontae's perfect hit that he hasn't changed completely as a human being since that day. No one's going to tell me anything different. And no one's going to make me believe anything different than that Devontae's perfect hit when Perfect was playing for the Bengals and he hits AB coming over the middle with the Steelers. And Brown was probably knocked out of the game and was unconscious, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we're not talking about that. We're talking about how much fun it is to watch 2 teams play against each other in a divisional round. We're talking about the next Manning-Brady deal.
Yep.
And I really hope it's just the first game of the NFL schedule next year, Bills-Chiefs. Thursday Night Football, Bills-Chiefs. Sign me up right now. I'm in. Because that was a Super Bowl to me. Especially if the Super Bowl this year ends up being not in the 30s. For if either team scores 30 points in the Super Bowl this year, then that was a Super Bowl game. Because you asked earlier, was that the best game I've ever seen? Hard to say no right now. Hard to say no.
I agree.
So
I agree.
Well, Jake, as always here, thanks so much for joining me on the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. Please follow at the CGA Tour on Twitter and Instagram for more. And if you're not already, rate, review, like, follow, subscribe on the YouTube channel as well too. Thanks so much again, and we'll catch you guys again soon. Peace.